He's supposed to find his true mate within the pack. Someone who shares his strength. Someone who can run beside him under the full moon, who understands the weight of what it means to be a wolf, who is born into this world of pack politics and ancient hierarchies. Someone worthy. Someone who makes sense. But instead, fate brought me into his life.
Me.
A human girl who didn't know the first thing about werewolves until a few months ago. A girl who can't shift, can't howl at the moon, can't defend herself against the supernatural threats that lurk in the shadows. A girl who, by all accounts, has no business being anywhere near an alpha, let alone being claimed as his mate. But before we continue, please tell me your name and the city you're watching from in the comment below, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And that makes everything impossible. We're not just different species. We're on opposite ends of a world I don't even belong to. His world is ancient, primal, ruled by instinct and tradition. Mine is mundane, human, fragile. The pack has rules, strict, unbreakable rules, and one of them is crystal clear. The alpha must mate within the pack. To do otherwise is to weaken the bloodline, to invite chaos, to betray everything their ancestors built. So you can imagine the problem here. The universe, in its infinite wisdom, or maybe its twisted sense of humor, decided to make me his mate. The one person he absolutely cannot have. The one person who could destroy everything he's built, everything he's sworn to protect. Talk about cosmic irony, right? At first, I thought I was imagining things. Maybe it was just his power, his presence, making me feel this way. When you're around someone that commanding, that magnetic, it's easy to confuse awe with attraction, respect with desire. He walked into a room, and everyone noticed. The air itself seemed to shift, to acknowledge him. And I was no exception. I told myself that's all it was. Just my human brain trying to make sense of the overwhelming force of nature that is Kieran. That's his name, by the way.
Kieran.
Even his name sounds powerful, doesn't it? Like something ancient and untamed. I tried to rationalize it. Of course I was drawn to him. Anyone would be. It didn't mean anything. It couldn't mean anything. But then it happened. That moment when our eyes met across the room, and I swear to you, time stopped. Everything else fell away. The noise, the other pack members, the world itself. And it was just us. Just his storm gray eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that took my breath away. I could see it in his eyes. The hunger, the desire, the need, but also the war raging behind them. The struggle between what he wanted and what he knew was right. The battle between the man and the alpha, between his heart and his duty. His jaw clenched, his hands fisted at his sides. And for just a moment, I saw him, really saw him. Not the alpha. Not the leader, just a man who wanted something he couldn't have. A man who was suffering because of it. And the worst part? I could feel it too. This pull, this magnetic force drawing me toward him like gravity. My heart raced. My skin tingled. Every nerve in my body came alive, hyper-aware of exactly where he was in the room, how many steps it would take to reach him, what it would feel like to close that distance. But I couldn't let myself fall into that. I couldn't let myself believe that this man, this alpha, could ever truly want someone like me. What would that mean for him? What would it mean for me? What would it mean for the dozens of wolves who depended on him to lead them, to protect them, to put the pack above all else, even above himself? I wasn't just some complication in his life. I was a threat to his authority, to the pack's stability, to everything he'd worked for. And yet, the bond, because that's what it was, that's what I later learned to call it, the bond didn't care about any of that. It didn't care about politics or rules or impossibilities. It just was. Inevitable. Undeniable. Absolutely terrifying. So let me ask you something. Let me make this personal for a moment because I need you to really think about this. Could you fall for someone who you know is forbidden? Someone who represents everything you shouldn't want? Could you handle the consequences if it meant losing everything? Your home, your identity, your place in the world? Could you look at someone and know, with absolute certainty, that being with them would destroy you both, and still want them with every fiber of your being? Because that's where I was. That's the impossible position I found myself in. And the truly terrifying part? I didn't know if I was strong enough to walk away. The truth is, I couldn't stop thinking about him. Every moment, every breath, I could feel him. It was like he'd gotten under my skin, into my blood, and I couldn't shake him loose no matter how hard I tried. And believe me, I tried. I avoided him. I took different routes through the pack house, so I wouldn't run into him. I made excuses when meetings were called. I buried myself in trying to learn about this new world I'd been thrust into, reading every book about werewolf lore I could get my hands on, as if understanding the rules would somehow make breaking them easier. It didn't work, because even when I wasn't with him, I was aware of him. I could feel when he was near, like some sixth sense I'd developed overnight. My body responded to his presence before my mind even registered it, my pulse quickening, my breath catching, heat flooding through me. And he couldn't stay away either. But he tried. God, did he try? He had his pack to protect, his duty to uphold. His role as alpha came first. That's what he kept telling me anyway. Every time we found ourselves alone, every time that tension built to a breaking point, he'd step back. He'd remind me, and himself, of all the reasons this couldn't happen. You don't understand what you're asking, he said to me once, his voice rough with barely controlled emotion. The pack is my family. My responsibility. I can't put my own desires above their survival. I'm not asking you for anything. I shot back, even though we both knew it was a lie. I was asking for everything just by existing in his world. Aren't you? His eyes bore into mine, and I saw the torment there. Every time you look at me like that, you're asking. Every time you walk into a room and my entire world narrows down to just you, you're asking. And I'm trying. I'm trying so damn hard to be the alpha they need me to be. Then maybe I should leave, I whispered, the words tearing at my throat. The growl that rumbled from his chest was pure wolf, pure possessive male. Don't. Just one word, but it carried the weight of a command and a plea all at once. Don't even think about it. You can't have it both ways, Kieran. You can't push me away and demand I stay. I know. The admission seemed to cost him. I know, and it's tearing me apart. That's how it was between us. This constant push and pull, advance and retreat, want and denial. We were locked in a dance neither of us knew how to end. But it didn't matter how hard we fought it. Every time we crossed paths, it felt like the ground beneath us shifted. The air crackled with electricity. The world held its breath. I could see it in the way he watched me, like he was battling something deep inside, something primal and powerful that he couldn't control. His alpha nature recognizing its mate and demanding he claim what was his. And me? I tried to stay away. I swear I tried. But the pull? It was too strong. It wasn't just attraction, though God knows that was there in spades. It wasn't just physical desire, though my body ached for his touch in ways I'd never experienced before. It was something deeper, something we couldn't escape. It was like two pieces of a puzzle that fit together perfectly, even though they came from completely different sets. It was recognition on a soul level. It was coming home to a place you've never been before. And that made it all the more dangerous, because the pack was starting to notice. Oh, they tried to be subtle about it, but I could feel their eyes on me. Could hear the whispered conversations that stopped when I entered a room. Some looked at me with pity, others with barely concealed hostility. And a few, the ones who truly understood what was happening, looked at me with fear, because they knew what I was, what I represented. I was a human mate bond to their alpha. I was a weakness in their strongest defense. I was the thing that could tear their entire world apart. Marcus, Kieran's beta and oldest friend, cornered me one afternoon. He was gentler than I expected, but his message was clear. You seem like a good person, he said quietly. And I can see that you care about him. But you need to understand what's at stake here. I do understand. Do you? He shook his head. The pack is already unstable. We've got rivals circling, waiting for any sign of weakness. If Kieran claims a human mate, if he breaks one of our most fundamental laws, it won't just affect him. It'll affect every wolf here. Some will stand by him. Others won't. And when a pack divides. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. When a pack divides, people die. I felt sick. What am I supposed to do? I think you know. His eyes were kind but firm. The kindest thing you can do for all of us, including Kieran, is to leave. To remove the temptation before it destroys him. He was right. I knew he was right. But knowing what you should do and actually doing it are two very different things. How do you walk away from the other half of your soul? The tension kept building. Every day that passed without resolution was like another stone added to an already crushing weight. Kieran grew more volatile, his control slipping in small but noticeable ways. He snapped at pack members who didn't deserve it. He pushed himself harder in training, as if he could somehow fight his way out of this impossible situation. He avoided pack gatherings where I might be present, but I could feel his awareness of me like a physical touch even from across the compound. And I wasn't doing much better. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. My entire existence had narrowed down to this one terrible truth. I was in love with someone I couldn't have, and that love was going to destroy us both. The pack house felt like a pressure cooker ready to explode. Everyone was on edge, waiting for something to give. Waiting for the inevitable. I made my decision on a Tuesday. I would leave. I would pack my things in the dead of night and disappear. It would hurt. God, it would hurt worse than anything I'd ever experienced, but it was the right thing to do. The only thing to do. I didn't get the chance. Because fate, apparently, had other plans. It happened one night under the full moon. I wasn't expecting it. Neither was he. The full moon affects all werewolves, making them more primal, more instinctive, more in touch with their wolf nature. Kieran usually locked himself away during these times, not trusting himself around me when his control was at its weakest. But this night was different. There was a threat, a group of rogues testing the pack's borders. Everyone who could fight was called to defend the territory, including Kieran. Including me, because even though I was human, I'd been learning, training, trying to be useful in this world I'd stumbled into. The fight was brief, but brutal. We drove them off, but not before several pack members were injured. The adrenaline, the violence, the primal energy of the moon and the battle, it all created a perfect storm. I was checking on the wounded when I felt him behind me, felt the heat of him, the barely leashed power radiating off him in waves. Kieran. I didn't turn around. Didn't trust myself to. Are you hurt? His voice was rougher than usual, more growl than words. No. I'm fine. Good. A pause. You shouldn't have been out there. You could have been killed. Now I did turn, anger flaring. I can take care of myself. Can you? He stepped closer, and I could see his eyes had shifted, more wolf than man. Because from where I was standing, you were seconds away from a rogue's claws. I had it handled. You had nothing handled. If I hadn't, he cut himself off, jaw clenching so hard I could hear his teeth grind. If you hadn't what? Saved me? Protected me? I stepped forward, closing the distance between us despite every warning bell going off in my head. That's your problem, Kieran. You think I'm some fragile thing that needs protecting. You do need protecting. You're human in a world of monsters. Then maybe I shouldn't be here at all. The words hung between us like a blade. His eyes flashed, and suddenly his hand was on my arm, his grip gentle but unbreakable. Don't. That word again. That command plea that tore at my heart. Why not? I demanded, and I could feel tears threatening. Why shouldn't I go? Give me one good reason, Kieran. One reason that makes sense. Because you're mine. The words were torn from him, raw and desperate. And in that moment, everything changed. We found ourselves alone, the chaos of the battle fading into the background. Somehow we'd moved away from the others, drawn by that invisible thread that connected us. The moon hung full and heavy overhead, bathing everything in silver light. All I could hear was my heart pounding in my chest. All I could see was him. This powerful, tormented man who wanted me as much as I wanted him. He came closer, so close I could feel his breath on my skin, could see the war still raging in his eyes. The alpha trying to maintain control. The man losing the battle. And then he whispered my name. Just my name. But the way he said it, like a prayer, like a curse, like the answer to every question he'd ever had, it undid me completely. This is insane. I breathed. This will destroy everything. I know. The pack will never accept it. I know. We could lose everything. I know. Each word was punctuated with another step closer until there was no space left between us. And I don't care anymore. I can't keep fighting this. Fighting us. Kieran, tell me to stop. His hand came up to cup my face, and I leaned into the touch like a flower turning toward the sun. Tell me you don't want this, and I'll walk away. I'll find the strength somehow. But I need to hear you say it. I opened my mouth. The words were right there. The sensible, logical, safe words that would end this before it began. That would protect him, protect the pack, protect us both from the consequences of what we were about to do. But they wouldn't come, because they would be a lie. And I was done lying, to him, to myself, to everyone. I can't, I whispered. I can't tell you that because it's not true. I want this. I want you. Even if it destroys us. Even if it's the worst decision we ever make. I want you. The moment he touched me, everything changed. Every wall we'd built came crashing down. Every reason we'd given ourselves for staying apart crumbled to dust. Every rule, every law, every impossibility, none of it mattered anymore. He kissed me, and in that kiss, I felt it, everything I had been fighting against. The desire, the need, the absolute rightness of it despite everything that said it was wrong. It was like coming alive for the first time, like every moment before this had been lived in black and white, and suddenly the world burst into color. His hands tangled in my hair. Mine clutched at his shoulders, pulling him closer, trying to eliminate even the molecules of air between us. The kiss deepened, became something wild and desperate and consuming. I tasted moonlight and danger and promise. I tasted forever. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. There's no going back from this, he said, and I could hear both warning and wonder in his voice. I know. They'll fight us. The pack. The other alphas. Maybe even the council. I know. Your life will never be the same. I pulled back just enough to look into his eyes. My life hasn't been the same since the moment I met you. Since the moment this bond snapped into place and I knew, without question, that you were mine and I was yours. So no, there's no going back. But maybe there's a way forward. He kissed me again, softer this time, but no less intense. Maybe, he agreed, but it won't be easy. Nothing worth having ever is. And I knew then there was no going back. The decision was made. The line was crossed. Whatever came next, we would face it together. Or we would fall together. Either way, we were in this now. All the way. But love, true love, has a price. And now we had to pay it. The pack is a family, but they're also a machine. A carefully balanced ecosystem where every part has its place, its function, its role to play. And when one part breaks the rules, when one piece goes rogue, the whole system is threatened. They don't forgive weakness. They don't forgive betrayal. And what we had, it was both. The morning after, God, that sounds so mundane, doesn't it? The morning after. Like we just had some casual hookup instead of irrevocably changing the course of both our lives. The morning after, reality came crashing back with all the subtlety of a freight train. Kieran had to face his pack, had to stand before them and explain why their alpha had claimed a human mate. Had to look them in the eyes. These wolves who had followed him for years, who had trusted him to lead them, who had believed he would always put the pack first, and tell them that everything had changed. I wanted to be there, wanted to stand beside him and face it together. But he asked me to wait. Said this was something he had to do alone as their alpha. So I waited. And the waiting was torture. I could hear them. Even from the far side of the compound, I could hear the raised voices, the angry growls, the howls of dissent. And through it all, Kieran's voice, steady and strong, trying to make them understand. trying to convince them that this wasn't the end. Marcus found me hours later. His face was grim. How bad? I asked, even though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. About as bad as expected. Maybe worse. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. Half the pack is ready to challenge his authority. A quarter wants to leave entirely. And the rest? He shrugged. The rest are waiting to see what happens next. My heart sank. This is my fault.
No.
His voice was firm. This is fate's fault. The mate bond isn't something either of you chose. It just is. But... He hesitated. But what? But how you handle it from here? That's a choice. And the choices you both make in the coming days will determine whether this pack survives or splinters apart. No pressure, right? When Kieran finally came to me, he looked exhausted. Not just physically, though there was that too, but soul-deep tired. The kind of weariness that comes from fighting a battle you're not sure you can win. I went to him, wrapped my arms around him, and just held him. Felt him hold me back just as tightly. Tell me it's worth it, he said quietly. Tell me we didn't just destroy everything for nothing. It's worth it, I said immediately. We're worth it. I don't know how we make this work. I don't know how we convince them or navigate all the politics or deal with whatever comes next. But I know that finding your mate, your true mate, is supposed to be the rarest, most precious thing in the world. And I refuse to believe that something this powerful, this real, is wrong just because it doesn't fit their expectations. He pulled back to look at me, and some of the weariness faded from his eyes. When did you get so fierce? About the same time I fell in love with an alpha werewolf and decided to fight the entire supernatural world for the right to be with him. A smile tugged at his lips, the first genuine smile I'd seen in days. I love you, he said simply. I should have said it before, but I'm saying it now. I love you. More than the pack. More than my duty. More than my own life. I love you too. The words felt both terrifying and liberating. So, what do we do now?
Now.
He took my hand, laced our fingers together. Now we fight. For us. For our right to be together. And we pray that love is enough. I couldn't stop thinking about the alpha, about the way he looked at me. But now, every time I saw him, all I could see were the risks. His position, his duty, his pack. Could we survive all of that? The days that followed were some of the hardest of my life. The pack was divided, and that division played out in 1,000 small cruelties and larger confrontations. Some pack members refused to acknowledge me at all, looking through me as if I didn't exist. Others were openly hostile, making it clear they blamed me for corrupting their alpha, for bringing chaos into their ordered world. There were challenges. Other wolves, thinking Kieran was weakened by his choice to claim a human mate, stepped forward to contest his leadership. He won every single challenge, of course. He was still the strongest alpha for hundreds of miles, but each fight took its toll. Each victory was purchased with blood and pain. And I felt every wound as if it were my own. But there were small victories too. Pack members who approached me quietly, admitting they didn't understand the mate bond fully, but were willing to try. Young wolves who saw in our story a possibility for change, for evolution, for something beyond the rigid traditions they'd been raised with. Slowly, painfully slowly, we started to find our footing. Started to carve out a place where we could exist together. It wasn't easy. God, it was so far from easy. There were nights when Kieran was called away to deal with pack business, with threats from other territories who saw our situation as an opportunity to attack. Nights when I lay awake wondering if he would come back, if this would be the fight that finally broke him. There were moments when I questioned everything, when the weight of what we were doing, the lives we were affecting, the traditions we were shattering, felt too heavy to bear. But then there were the other moments. The quiet mornings when I woke up in his arms and felt completely safe despite the chaos swirling around us. The times when he looked at me like I was the answer to every question, the solution to every problem. The instances when we proved that a human and a werewolf could work together, could be stronger together than apart. Those moments made it worth it. We established new traditions, created new rules that made space for both the old ways and this new reality. Kieran implemented changes that had been needed for years, but no one had dared suggest. Opening the pack to allies outside their bloodlines, creating councils that gave more wolves a voice in decisions, modernizing their approach to pack politics. And slowly, very slowly, the pack began to heal. The divisions didn't disappear overnight, but they started to close. Trust began to rebuild, fragile and tentative but real. We proved that change wasn't the end. That love wasn't weakness. That sometimes the most forbidden thing is exactly what you need to grow stronger. But even as we found our rhythm, even as we built something new and precious from the ashes of what had been, I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't out of the woods yet. Because the pack wasn't the only group with opinions about what we'd done. There were the other alphas to consider. The larger supernatural community. The ancient councils who governed werewolf law. And they were watching. Waiting. Judging. The summons came on a cold winter morning. An official decree from the Council of Alphas, requiring Kieran's presence at a formal hearing to address his violation of werewolf law. We both knew what that meant. They wanted to make an example of him. To show that even an alpha couldn't break the rules without consequences. "I'll go alone," Kieran said immediately. "Like hell you will." "This isn't your fight." "The hell it isn't." I stepped close, putting my hand on his chest, feeling his heartbeat strong and steady beneath my palm. "We're in this together, remember? You and me. Whatever happens, we face it side by side." He covered my hand with his. "They could force us apart. Could exile you, or worse. Then we'll deal with that if it happens. But I'm not letting you walk into that room alone. I'm not letting you take all the blame for something we both chose." The hearing was brutal. A dozen alphas from territories across the continent, all of them powerful, all of them traditional, all of them convinced that what Kieran had done was an abomination. They questioned everything. His judgment, his fitness to lead, his loyalty to werewolf kind. They picked apart every decision we'd made, looking for weakness, for proof that this human mate had indeed corrupted their brother Alpha. But Kieran stood firm, answered every question with unflinching honesty, defended our bond without apology or excuse. And when they turned on me, and they did, viciously, he stepped in front of me like a shield. "You want to question my choice?
Fine.
You want to doubt my leadership? I'll prove myself 1,000 times over. But you will not disrespect my mate. You will not treat her as anything less than what she is, the other half of my soul, the one the universe chose for me, the one I choose every single day." The head of the council, an ancient alpha named Thaddeus, studied us for a long moment. "The law is clear," he said finally. "Alphas mate within their pack. To do otherwise weakens the bloodline, threatens the stability." "The law was written centuries ago," Kieran interrupted. "When our world was different. When survival meant closing ranks and trusting no one outside our kind. But the world has changed. We've changed. Or we should have. You would have us abandon centuries of tradition? Of wisdom? I would have us evolve.
Adapt. Grow.
Isn't that what has always made us strong? Our ability to change with the times while holding onto what truly matters. And what truly matters, young Alpha?" Kieran took my hand.
This.
The mate bond. The connection that makes us whole. You can't tell me that the universe, the moon goddess herself, would create a bond this powerful, this undeniable, just to test us. The bond exists for a reason. And when we fight it, when we deny it for the sake of outdated laws, we're fighting against the very force that created us. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Thaddeus spoke. "You make a compelling argument. And your pack, despite initial resistance, seems to be adapting." He paused. "But the council has concerns. Valid concerns about precedent, about what happens if every alpha decides to follow their heart instead of their head." "Then set conditions," Kieran said immediately. "Requirements that must be met. Prove that the pack remains strong. That the human mate can integrate, can contribute, can be more than a liability. Will meet any reasonable standard you set." More silence. More deliberation. In the end, they didn't give us everything we wanted. But they gave us a chance. A conditional acceptance, pending proof that our bond strengthened rather than weakened the pack. Regular check-ins. Oversight.
Scrutiny.
It wasn't perfect, but it was hope. So let me ask you something. And I want you to really think about this because it matters. Can love survive when everything is stacked against it? When the world says no, when tradition demands you walk away, when every logical argument points to impossibility, can love still find a way? Or do we just keep breaking each other until we can't come back? Do we damage ourselves and everyone around us in pursuit of something that maybe was never meant to be? I used to think I knew the answer. Used to believe that love conquered all, that if two people wanted it badly enough, they could overcome anything.
Now
I know it's more complicated than that. Love doesn't conquer all. Not by itself. Love is powerful, yes. Transformative. Essential. But love without work is just a feeling. Love without commitment is just desire. Love without the willingness to fight, to sacrifice, to grow and change and compromise, that love doesn't survive the real world. What Kieran and I have survived because we chose it. Every single day. We chose each other over easier paths. Chose to fight instead of flee. Chose to believe that what we had was worth every obstacle, every hardship, every moment of doubt. But we also chose to grow, to learn, to adapt. I learned about pack dynamics, about werewolf culture, about what it really meant to be a Luna. I trained until I could at least defend myself, until I was an asset instead of just a liability. I built relationships with pack members, proved myself worthy not just of Kieran's love, but of their trust. And Kieran? He learned to lead differently, to listen to voices he might have dismissed before, to question traditions that no longer served his pack, to be vulnerable, to admit when he was wrong, to share the weight of leadership instead of carrying it alone. We both changed. We both grew. And that growth, that willingness to become better versions of ourselves for each other and for the pack, that's what made the difference. The months that followed the council hearing were intense. We had to prove ourselves over and over again. Had to show that a human Luna could work, that our bond made the pack stronger, not weaker. There were setbacks. Moments when it seemed like we'd taken one step forward and 3 steps back. Challenges from outside the pack, from those who still saw our bond as weakness to exploit. But there were triumphs too. Treaties with neighboring packs who were inspired by our example to reconsider their own rigid traditions. Young wolves who found hope in our story, who dared to believe they might find their own mates outside the narrow confines of what had always been done. We created something new. Not perfect, not without struggle, but real. And ours. We stand at the edge of something neither of us can control. His desire for me could destroy everything, and mine for him might do the same. But do we give in? Or do we fight it? You want to know the truth? The real truth? We did both. We gave in to the desire, to the love, to the undeniable pull of the mate bond. We stopped fighting what we were and embraced it fully. But we also fought. We fought against those who would tear us apart. Fought against the voices, internal and external, that said we were wrong, impossible, doomed. We fought for our right to be together, for the pack's right to evolve, for the future we wanted to build. It's been 2 years now since that night under the full moon when we first gave in. 2 years of challenges and changes, of heartbreak and triumph, of learning what it really means to be mates in a world that said we couldn't be. And I won't lie to you, it's still hard sometimes. There are still pack members who don't fully accept me. Still alphas in other territories who see our bond as a dangerous precedent. Still moments when the weight of it all feels crushing. But there are also moments of pure joy, of belonging, of rightness. Moments when I look around at this pack, our pack, and see not just acceptance but love. When I watch Kieran lead with a wisdom and compassion that wasn't there before, that comes from having a partner who challenges him, who sees him not just as an alpha, but as a man. We have children now. 2 beautiful pups who are half human, half werewolf, who represent everything we fought for. They shift with their father under the full moon, but they carry my humanity too, my perspective, my heart. They are the future. Living proof that love can bridge impossible divides. that what we choose matters more than what we were born as. Is it perfect?
No.
Will there always be challenges? Absolutely. But every day, we choose each other. Every day, we choose this life we've built together. And every day, that choice gets a little easier, a little more natural, a little more right. What happens next is a decision we'll both regret, or maybe one we'll never be able to forget. We chose forget regret. Chose to make this decision one we'd be proud of. One our children could look back on and understand that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is fight for love when everyone says you shouldn't. So I'm going to ask you one more time, and I want you to really think about your answer. Do you think the alpha should choose love over duty? Or is there no way back from this? Because here's what I learned. It's not an either-or choice. Love and duty don't have to be opposing forces. When you find your true mate, when you build a real partnership based on mutual respect and growth, love enhances duty. It makes you a better leader, a better person, a better version of yourself. Kieran didn't choose me over his pack. He chose me and his pack. He chose to expand what his duty meant, to redefine what strength looks like, to lead not from a place of rigid tradition but from a place of wisdom that understands when rules need to change. And that made all the difference. Is there a way back from choosing love? Maybe not. But here's the secret. You don't want to go back. Because moving forward, growing, evolving into something new and better than what you were, that's not loss. That's life. That's what we're meant to do. The old Kieran, the one who followed every rule without question, who never challenged tradition, who kept everyone at arm's length, he was a good alpha. But the Kieran who fought for our love, who dared to imagine a different future, who learned to lead with both strength and heart, he's a great one. And me? I'm not the same girl who stumbled into this world 2 years ago. I'm stronger, wiser, more certain of who I am and what I want. I'm a Luna, a mother, a bridge between worlds. I've found my place in a world I never knew existed, and I've helped that world expand to include people like me. So no, there's no way back. But there's a way forward. And that way is built on love, on choice, on the willingness to fight for what matters most. Every day, we're writing a new story. Not just for us, but for every werewolf who's ever felt torn between their heart and their duty. For every human who's ever loved someone from a different world. For every person who's ever been told that their love is wrong, impossible, forbidden. We're proving them wrong. One day at a time. One choice at a time. One act of courage at a time. And you know what? It's worth it. Every struggle. Every sacrifice. Every moment of doubt. Because at the end of the day, I get to fall asleep in the arms of my mate. I get to wake up knowing I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I get to look at our children and see the future we're building together. That's not just worth fighting for. That's worth everything. So what do you think? Should the alpha choose love over duty? Can a forbidden romance survive in a world determined to tear it apart? Do you believe in fate, in soulmates, in the idea that some bonds are too powerful to deny? Because I didn't. Not before all this. I was a skeptic, a pragmatist, someone who believed you made your own destiny. And I still believe that last part. You do make your own destiny. But sometimes, fate hands you the raw materials, and it's up to you what you build with them. Fate gave us the bond. We chose what to do with it.
We chose to fight.
We chose to grow. We chose love, knowing full well the price we might pay. And we'd make the same choice again. Every time. Without hesitation. Because that's what real love is. Not the easy, perfect, fairy tale kind. But the kind that makes you better. The kind that challenges you to grow beyond who you thought you could be. The kind that's worth fighting for even when, especially when, the world says you shouldn't. This is our story. The alpha and his forbidden mate who became his chosen Luna. The love that was supposed to destroy everything, but instead transformed it. The bond that was meant to be impossible, but proved to be unstoppable. It's not over. Our story continues every day, with new challenges and new triumphs. But this chapter? This chapter ends with hope, with love, with the knowledge that sometimes The most forbidden thing is exactly what you need to set you free. What's your story? What forbidden love are you fighting for? What impossible choice are you facing? What bond are you too afraid to acknowledge? Let me know. Share your thoughts. Tell me if you believe love can survive when everything's stacked against it. Tell me if you'd make the same choice we did. And don't forget to follow along for more of our journey. Because this story is just getting started. The best parts are still ahead.